Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations in Horror. I am your host, Kevin Powers. I'm also the owner, operator, and proprietor of Something Wicked Entertainment. I want to thank you for joining our podcast today as we continue the month of celebrating the great month of Halloween, October, or October as
The month
Halloween.
of Halloween, October.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter what I say. We
We
all
should we
know.
should change it. We should change the name to Halloween in October. I like that.
We should. And what you're listening to is Dave Watkins, who's returning back to us to keep us going this month. We've been trying to release 2 episodes every week in order to celebrate this great month and to celebrate some amazing collection of horror films. Now, we've also been trying to highlight a lot of the films in the Halloween franchise, which we are doing today. But unlike, or unfortunately for most of you out there, we aren't doing the great sequels. We've done some great movies from the Halloween franchise already, but today we are doing one that's more infamous and has a lot more, how we say it, negative vibes. So we are doing Halloween: The Curse of Michael Myers, which is also Halloween 6 or Halloween 666, or if you were paying attention to this movie when it originally came out, they kept changing the name of it every other day, it seemed like. So I would thank Dave for coming in and helping me discuss this movie. And first of all, I ended up watching the producer's cut of this film.
Okay, yeah,
Tell
yeah.
everyone which version you watched.
So yeah, but I should have liked this movie a little bit more than you do, apparently. But I don't think it's one of the. It's definitely probably on my top five Halloween films, but maybe in the top six. But it's there's two versions of this film. There was a lot going on during production, and
Say the least.
yeah, the previous movie part five came out in 1989, and this one was a lot later. It came out a lot later than it should have in 1995, which is about 6 years after the other one. They originally were gonna come and do another one right after it, and it probably would have done a lot better had they done that. But they had a lot of issues with the script, and even after they shot it, they had one version of it that they shot, and then they brought it and they had a test screening, and the test screening didn't go very good, and the people in the test screening gave them a bunch of notes, and they kind of took it to heart. And I think in some instances it was probably better that they did. The movie even needed more changes than what was made anyway. But so they gave them some notes, and then they took it to heart, and then they actually made the revisions. When they went to go shoot the new stuff for the theatrical release, Donald Pleasance played Dr. Loomis had died before. Like he finished principal photography, but then died after that, and so they had to work the rewrites, and they actually reshot the whole ending. So about 45 minutes of the producer's cut that you watched, there's about 45 minutes that are different than the
Mhm.
theatrical version. It's about they're roughly about the same length. The theatrical cut is about an hour and 28 minutes, and the producer's cut's an hour and 36. But there's actually the scenes are different,
Mhm.
especially the ending. There's a lot of different stuff in the ending.
So, I saw the original theatrical cut when it came out because I was really excited to see another Halloween film. It had been 6 years since I saw the fifth one, so I was really jazzed to watch the sixth one. And to be honest with you, a lot of people were. It's been a long time in between movies for one, and people wanted to know just what the story was going to be next. And of course, the one thing I do commend the filmmakers for Halloween 6 is they tried to make sense of the stuff that was in part 5. They tried
Right.
to.
Yeah. But not only did they now there's kind of a cool thing that happened in part five. Now, part five to me is one of the worst ones. I think it's a lot worse than this one. But part five has this kind of man in black character that's kind of following Loomis around, or he's following Michael around, and Loomis at the same time he kind of has to hide from him a few times, and so you don't know who that is. And at the end of the film, he comes into the jail and breaks Michael Myers out of jail, which is a pretty cool, was kind of a cool idea. I kind of like that. It was like a lot of build up, a lot of mystery around who is this man in black with these spur hills and this kind of like black kind of fedora hat. It's a cool character part five.
Part five.
But yeah, but I mean, he appears here, and you finally find out who he is eventually. But it's very underwhelming, that aspect of it. But at the same time, I do like the actor that plays him
Yeah.
because he was on Dark Shadows, like the show. He was the original Burt Devlin from the Dark Shadows show. He's a lot older here, but he plays. We should probably get into that a little bit more later, but it's we probably hold back on some of the reveals, but you do find out who he is, and Mitch, was it Mitchell Orion plays him.
Mm-hmm.
But the both starting from, and this is the very last Halloween from the original Halloween series,
Mm-hmm.
because you had the first two with Jamie Lee Curtis, and then you had this part three was kind of in a separate parallel universe that was an anthology film. But then once they got back to 4 and 5 and 6, it follows the same timeline that started with the Jamie Lee Curtis films, even though they killed her character off screen, which really sucks that they did that in between, but she didn't want to come back.
Yeah.
And they added a new character, her daughter, who's Michael Myers' niece, Jamie Lloyd, and she kind of becomes the protagonist of the first two. And this one, they really do the character dirty, really bad. It started, and they even had the recaster because it's such a time with the writing of this. There's drafts of this script that had that character in it as a predominant character, but they decided to kill her off in the first like act pretty much.
15, yeah, I guess it's longer than like a opening for the film. So it's an odd thing, especially in the producer's cut when they keep her around for longer.
Yeah, and the first time I saw this movie in the theater when it first came out, this is really, I think, the only Halloween film I've seen in the theater. But I didn't put that together that was the same character, the Jamie Lloyd. I didn't put that together when I was watching it. It wasn't until like I watched it again later that I was like, wait a minute, that's the little girl from the other films. Of course, the weird thing was I was like, she's way too old to be playing that character, but the actress who plays her in the film's the same age as Danielle Harris, and she kind of looks like her a little bit, but I wasn't very convinced. But I would think even if they had Danielle Harris back in it, with her being older, it may not have still read, especially if they killed her off like they did, like so quickly. In the producer's cut, she lives longer, but it doesn't help. It's like she gets like injured earlier on, and then she's just passed out like in a coma for the rest of the movie until they go ahead and kill her about halfway through.
Yeah, it's her whole in the producer's cut. Her whole story is more or less kind of like it functions as trying to piece together everything that happened in between the fifth and sixth movie in regards to Michael being captured, Jamie Lloyd's character being held hostage, and then eventually being impregnated, as we all like to say, and innocently having Michael Myers' child, so to speak. Yeah. And I always knew it was.
Yeah.
Because I read Fangoria. So in Fangoria, before the movie comes out, they're hearing all the stories about what the script is supposed to be, all this type of stuff. And then I kind of remember some of the articles because the big thing was, how is Jamie Lloyd going to have Michael Myers' baby? This makes no sense. That was no one could figure that whole thing out. And then the original theatrical cut doesn't explain it either. It just,
I mean, the idea of that is just like ridiculous. It's not even like it's not even ridiculous. Isn't even the word for it. It's just messed up. You have this character that you've developed for 2 films, and then you decide to have her pregnant with her uncle's baby right off the bat, and then running from him, and then he catches her and kills her. And it's like, I don't know. It's just messed up in a very like not even like a mainstream like American type of film. It's just like if they were going to go that crazy with it and then not even make it clear what's going on, it's like, why bother?
Well, and that's one of the things that always bothered me until I saw the producer's cut, is because I had read the story. I was an avid Fangoria fan, so I read
But
all.
yeah, I think I had that same issue. I remember seeing like the picture of Loomis. It was like talking about his scars because the actor didn't want to do the makeup, so
Yeah,
they talked about him having like surgery to take off his scars, which is kind of yeah, which that was fine. I mean, Donald Pleasance is he was not feeling well. When they're in this film, and it's like his scenes are kind of painful. Like, you
yeah,
can tell he's struggling. He's having a hard time. But his scenes in the theatrical cut are so short. It's like it cuts to a scene of him, and it's like 10 seconds. Okay, next scene. You
yeah.
know, but you see him a lot more in the theatrical cut. It kind of helps. It helps like the Doctor Wynn characters, because the Doctor Wynn characters with him, and it helps you see that character more, because when the reveals later on with that character, it's like you don't even know who that is. To me, it's like you kind of see him a little bit at the beginning of the film, and it's the scenes were with him and Loomis and theatrical cut are
So
so
short.
short, so fleeting that it's like you don't. It's hard to register. But there's actually a scene that's pretty good between Loomis and Wynn near the beginning when they're in the hallway, and I've actually seen this in a television cut of the film, and it worked pretty good. There's like a scene where he's talking to Dr. Wynn, and he asked him to help him because he may not be able to deal with facing Michael Myers again. So
Mhm.
it's a pretty good scene, and it really needed to stay in the film just so you remember who Wynn is later on.
You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if that was in the television version, because obviously, if you watch the television version of both Halloween and Halloween 2, there are scenes in those television versions that's not in the theatrical version of either one of those films.
But no, it's in the television version. I saw it, and it's like it's in a different place than it is in the producer's cut. It's like further into the film. It's probably
Hmm.
about halfway through, and it like right after that scene, they have a commercial too. So he's like, help me, Doctor Wynn, I need your help or whatever. And it's like cuts the commercial.
Well, the original theatrical cut, as you mentioned, is already shorter than 90 minutes, so they got to fill
Yeah,
that 90 minutes with something when they do it on television. Jeez.
yeah.
I've never
It,
seen that version. By this time, I didn't watch television versions of anything really that much. But the thing was, I was always excited to see a Michael Myers film. I enjoyed this film when I first saw it. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed it because I got to see Michael Myers killing some more people, and I'd been waiting 6 years to fucking see that.
right.
So I was
And
excited.
and the deaths in this film in the theatrical cut are significantly improved upon the producer's cut. That was the producer's cut. That was one of the notes they got. They wanted the kills to be more gruesome, and so there's definitely some of the kills are better, especially when the kind of shithead dad gets killed and he gets electrocuted and his whole head like explodes. So,
Yeah, I when I was watching, and the thing is, it's funny because I've owned the producer's cut once when it came out, but I never watched it because it was at this time this part 6 wasn't one of the films I ever went back to watch. I just went to one day watch the producer's cut to see how different it was. I'm actually glad I waited till the podcast because I had to watch it with a critical eye. So I did notice that there are some deaths that are way more gruesome in the theatrical cut, especially when Jamie Lloyd's character originally gets
oh
killed.
yeah,
Yeah, I was like,
yeah,
when I was watching the producer cut, I was like, oh, that's it.
yeah.
I was
And
like,
yeah, and that's the thing I mean, I think there's two. And it's better. It's good to see like Wynn and Loomis more, but then you lose that her getting killed so gruesomely. So it's kind of like I can see why they cut all that just so
yeah,
they can have that really gruesome kill up near the beginning of the movie.
yeah. I agree with you on that. I hadn't thought about that, but you're right. Without her dying, they had to play up all the rest of the scenes and stuff like it. Both of them don't work. I did not know that they had gotten the notes from the screening of it. That's actually very interesting to watch because now I understand why certain things have been cut. That makes the theatrical cut very different from the producer's cut. So it's very interesting to have both versions to look at.
And it's interesting, but it's also kind of it's kind of confusing too if especially if you've seen one and then you see the other one and they start because I've seen them both several times and it's like they start to kind of blend together. But I could really the only I mean I do like some of the stuff in the producer's cut, but some of it doesn't necessarily help. Other than I think you needed more scenes with Dr. Wynn on regular, but which I think that one scene in the hallway would have been enough to do it. You know, it really sucks they cut it, and the director didn't like. I mean, he didn't like Pleasance's performance just because he knew he was struggling, and it's pretty obvious. And it's funny, even in the dialogue, like first time Dr. Wynn comes in and sees him, he's like, "Hey man, you're looking good," you know.
Yeah.
And he looks awful. It's like, but he's like, let's say he's looking good because he's supposed to be looking better. It's weird, like in that 6 year time period between part five and when they shot this one, how downhill Donald Pleasance's health had gone. You know, because he looks pretty healthy in part five for the most part, even though I was reading an interview with Daniel Harris saying that he was like drunk on set most of the time when he was there, you know.
Yeah, that unfortunately that's how the ending of his life started to go, and you start hearing those rumors and stuff like that after the fact. It's unfortunate, but you know, by that time Donald Pleasant wasn't like he was in the 80s where he did a lot of films. By the time this movie comes out, he's not, no one's calling him, knocking on his door saying, "I want you in my movie, Donald Pleasance."
Yeah, he's about 75, which is pretty old anyway. And I mean, stuff happens to people even younger than that. You know, people can suddenly have bad health, have a turn. So I mean, he wasn't like he was like young, but still though, it was a big difference in his what, you know, you can tell just his health in those 6 years.
Yeah. But someone who you weren't expecting to be really young in this movie is a young Paul Rudd.
Yeah.
Who got his start in this. I didn't realize I was rewatching it that this was his first film. I was like, oh, really?
Introducing Paul Rudd, and he's got like you can see it already from the way that when he handles some of his screen presence here. He's already kind of got it going. He makes some odd choices with the character, but it may have been director's notes on it. It's an odd character, but they were smart casting somebody like charismatic like Paul Rudd, because the character comes off kind of weird. He's Tommy Doyle, who was he was one of the kids Jamie Lee Curtis's character was babysitting in the first film, and here he's an adult, and he's kind of been obsessed with Michael Myers, been waiting for him to come back, and so he's kind of got, and he goes to his window and he stares at this girl across the street, Kara Strode. I guess she's probably she's related to Laurie Strode, Jamie Lee Curtis's character in some way. Maybe her I don't know, maybe her cousin or something. I don't know, but
they don't really explain it. So.
Yeah, I mean, people know about it online. I just didn't look that up. But yeah, he's like staring out the window at her, kind of peeping Tom acting. But at the same time, later on, she has to interact with him, and it's not. I mean, there's some chemistry going on between the characters, and it's not like he's kind of a weirdo, but luckily he's played by Paul Rudd, who's got charisma. So, yeah, that's the thing, and that's an interesting thing too. Is like, you know, sometimes, and this happens in real life. You know, if you know, when someone's kind of doing that gawking, staring thing, you know, you think they're a creep automatically. But if you start having a conversation with them, sometimes they're a better person than you assume that they are, just because they're doing something weird, like staring at people, you know.
I may have mentioned this before in some of my other podcasts about Paul Rudd in this movie in particular. Though one of the reasons why I remember this movie is because of Paul Rudd before Paul Rudd became Paul Rudd. And this is where, for me, the theatrical version outdoes the producer's version. Because I guess when they went back to reshoot some stuff, Paul Rudd had gotten into the character, and he has these quirky little looks on his face, especially when, you know, he is trying to escape from Michael Myers, and you start in the underground layer, so to speak. And he has these quirky looks and reactions that they record, the filmmakers caught of him staring at Michael Myers, and they're so fucking Paul Rudd in this early version of Paul Rudd that when I was watching the producer's version, I was expecting to see these again, and they're not there.
Right? Yeah. I mean, a lot of people think the producer's cut's a better cut, but the ending is, to me, it's a lot better in the theatrical. You know?
It is. Even
it's not
though
great, but it was lacking because they didn't have Donald Pleasance, you know, so they weren't able to. They had to like cut in little inserts of him that they were able to use, but they didn't have him to make the ending quite right. But it's a lot better ending. There's some real weird stuff that happens in that producer's cut that is almost laughable, you know.
Yeah, I connect when I saw that I was like, so Michael Myers put Dr. Wynn in his outfit and then walked out as though he was Dr. I was like, that's far beyond anything I've seen in any Michael Myers movie.
With no mask on either, you know. It's like
Yeah,
no mask.
I was
Yeah.
like, I was not expecting that. I was like, whoa, this is fucking weird.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, I could go with, you know, them adding some of the backstory with the Jamie character that they added in the producer's cut. But by the time you get to the third act, I was like, ugh. Yeah, now I can see why so many notes. Because,
Yeah.
you know, it needed that punch. And I'm glad for the theatrical cut. If I had never read Fangoria, I would have thought that the theatrical cut was perfectly fine. I wouldn't have known about the damn Jamie Lee Curtis having Michael Myers' baby. Wouldn't have thought about why that makes no sense whatsoever. Blah blah blah.
Yeah, it was Jamie Lloyd having his baby.
Jamie Lloyd, thank you.
Might as well have been Jamie Lee Curtis, so you know.
You know, when you read too much before a movie comes out, your expectations are completely different than what when you actually watch the movie. And my expectations for this were extremely different than when the movie I actually saw. Like I tell everyone, I've always been a big Halloween fan. I saw all of them at the theater except for the very last one. I just didn't bother with it. So the thing is, you know, we were happy to have another fucking Halloween movie. Now I couldn't go back and tell you what in the 6 years and what Friday the 13th sequel was coming out versus what Nightmare on Elm Street sequel was coming out or Texas Chainsaw Massacre. They all blur now. They all blur the timelines. But I was happy.
That I mean they get a lot right in this film. You know, they get the atmosphere pretty good. It's not necessarily scary, but even on they get a lot of the Halloween, like especially the outside scenes, establishing stuff in a kind of an outside kind of Halloween gathering, a fair thing going on. But so they have a lot of that stuff that really works well. Even like a lot of the kills work really well. It's just it is kind of a it's like the Cult of the Thorn. Was it Cult of Thorn?
Cult of Thorn.
Yeah, there's almost like two ideas going here. You got your standard like I mean that they added that in. I do kind of like it, but I don't at the same time. But it is interesting because they wanted to add more story to it, but other than just have them go around kill people. But it kind of makes it convoluted in a certain degree, and some of it doesn't make sense, especially if you try to take what they're telling you and back it up with what had happened before in some of the other films.
I'm just gonna put this out there because when I rewatched it, this is the first time it's ever dawned on me. So the story about what Dr. Wynn and all of his people are doing makes no sense to me now, because for me, I didn't pick up on this before because I was just being entertained. But when I rewatched it, I'm watching this movie, and
it's because you watch the producer's cut and they spell it out.
And you could be right because I could be I may not be remembering all the theatrical cut stuff because to be honest with you, I haven't seen the movie in freaking years. Yeah. But when I'm watching the producer's cut, I'm like, so this Cult of Thorn it has impregnated Jamie with Michael Myers' baby just so that Michael Myers can have someone to kill to end that curse and push it onto someone else. Why didn't they just let him kill her and it would have ended there?
Well, it's like yeah.
Well, I mean, they are grooming Kara's little kid to be that family to take on the curse, so to speak, when Michael Myers has killed the baby. They want Michael Myers to kill the baby. But if they wanted that, then why the hell did they impregnate Jamie to begin with? That doesn't make any sense to me. Like, why didn't they just...
I think he has to kill I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's convoluted, but there's certain, yeah, they came up with some weird rules. I mean, but I think they do it a lot better in the theatrical because they don't spell it out.
Yeah,
I like the idea of about I'm leaving some stuff to your imagination, but the cult of Thorn, um, so they're basically a group of I guess they where they come from, the Druids. They're like a
mhm.
Druid cult, and they help Michael Myers, who they worship this symbol, the thorn symbol, but they help him as far as by taking care of him in between certain times. Just I guess only when that it's based on a star
Constellation.
constellation.
Mhm.
So when that's only when that star constellation's out does he need to kill for whatever reason. But it's an interesting thing because how it kind of, but it does help explain like how's he taken care of between stuff that happens. So they take care of him during that, and then I guess part of it in both versions, he's basically forced to kill his family members. So that's part of the cult's thing that he has to kill his specific family members. But I guess if he kills all of his family members, then they're in bad shape. That's I guess why they're trying to get Danny to be the next one because he has more. These Strodes really got screwed over when they adopted Laurie, by the
Well,
way. Is
they did. And I don't think and I could have just passed this over because I didn't realize that, or think that Danny, from the very, very beginning of the film, because the very first scene that you see of him, he sees a version of Wynn in the Get Up, and that he's having a nightmare too.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he actually sees Wynn later in the film, and he sees Michael Myers later in the film, and then, of course, at some point Wynn has a control and calling him and all this other type of stuff because Michael Myers doesn't kill the little boy. Um, and some of that makes sense. But I still could when I watched the producer's cut, and I think you're right. I think they spell it out too much. If they had not told me that there were all the rules with their whole little cult of Thorn, I probably wouldn't have thought about it. I'd have to rewatch the theatrical version to actually be able to decipher all this. I just thought it was really odd because, in my opinion, I wouldn't keep no Michael Myers around as your slave until the time of the Thorn constellation shows up, so he can kill again.
But yeah, and he of course like turns on him at the last minute, like you would expect him to. Yeah, but in both versions, he kind of does that.
Well, in the producer's cut, what ends up happening at first is that when Kara and Paul Rudd saves Kara and they run away with Danny and the baby, Michael Myers is out of that trance. And he goes back to the following after the baby. That's what
he doesn't kill him in that one, does he? In the producer's cut, he's cool with him in that one, isn't he?
Yeah, he stands around while they're about to have Danny sacrifice his mother, and he just stands there in the background until the baby goes. Paul Rudd grabs everybody and they all leave, which also doesn't make much sense because they're like, so Wynn's got a knife and Paul Rudd's got a knife at Wynn, but all these other fucking followers are right there. It's like,
well, and I think just the in between the producer's cut. Now, this is very interesting what they did with this in the producer's cut and it opens with this. They're all in these like black ceremonial robes. And in the producer's cut, they have Kara Strode, around these flowers. They're going to, I guess, impregnate her or whatever. And so it's all very sacrificial looking. And it's kind of just the whole thing, Michael Myers, like, hanging out with them and just, like, kind of like he's just there on standby just in case they need him. That whole thing is, like, doesn't work very good. It kind of takes away a lot from Michael Myers, I think.
Yeah.
But they also do they made an odd decision as well, which I know they hated that. They were like, that ceremony thing sucks. So instead of doing the ceremony, even though they keep the ceremony at the beginning of the film, when it gets down to that part, instead of doing a ceremony, they're all in their hospital garbs and they start trying to do some operation. Where they're trying to operate. Who are they trying to operate on? Danny or something, I think. But So all the doctors instead they're operating instead of like doing a ceremony, so they don't have their cloaks on. They actually had to reshoot the scene. Donald Pleasant's character Loomis talks to Dr. Wynn, and he's got his black cloak on and stuff. What's weird is like he changes into this black cloak. Why didn't they have him just wear the Man in Black uniform?
Yeah.
Instead of wearing the stupid cloak. But he's sitting there at the table with this vampire looking cloak thing on, and Loomis comes in and talks to him. So when they reshot it for the theatrical, instead of having him in that, they have him in some kind of like brown suit. Followed by that, he's in hospital garb. But it's like, why would he just keep the man in? It's like, why would you wear the Man in Black stuff to begin with, and then all of a sudden, like not have it on anymore?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like kind of like that would be a big deal to change from that to a suit, I would think. And it's like, what's the point of even having the Man in Black suit on to begin with? It's like just to put it on just so you can show everybody you're the Man in Black, and then take it off in the next scene to put your suit back on.
Well, also keep in mind that the only 2 points I know why I could think of that he wears a Man in Black suit is, one is to introduce to the audience who have been following these movies that the Man in Black from the 5th film has a purpose in this movie. And then the next time when wearing it inside the house, when it's revealed that he's the one Man in Black, is the other big time where they would need to have it. So, the audience says, it was Wynn all the time.
Yeah,
and after that, they got rid of it.
Yeah, but it's like, it looks cool though. Why not just keep it on? You think he would embrace that shit instead of being like I'm going to go put the suit on and just look like a rando. It's like
script continuity. They forgot when they were shooting it out of order. They forgot.
I don't think they forgot. I would like to know why they didn't keep him in it, because they had to reshoot that part. They were like they didn't like him wearing. It's probably this. They didn't like him wearing the ceremonial like cloak gown thing. They thought that looked ridiculous, and it kind of did. But at the same time, I guess it was probably they were worried about him looking ridiculous again wearing the Man in Black stuff. So they were like, maybe we should just have him wear a suit.
Well, the film is lucky that it has the cast that it does. I mean, we've talked a lot about Donald Pleasance, and we talked about Paul Rudd, and we talked about the what's his face who plays Wynn. And for the most part, a lot of the younger casts come off as the same as they did in Halloween 5 for me. Like easy cannon fodder, they're not easily memorable, and they needed that. What was Jamie's stepsister in the 4th one? Shit.
But Tina's the one in the other one. Tina's the one in the 5th one that everybody doesn't like.
Okay,
yeah. I don't remember.
They need another one of her in these movies to anchor it, which they don't have. Because Kara is not that interesting of a character, to be honest with you.
Right. Yeah, I kind of like her a little bit, but she does seem like she maybe a little miscast, and she does have some going for her. She's kind of like got this mousy kind of look, but then at the same time, she seems like maybe she's a little. She probably maybe seems like a little too old looking. Like maybe the character. I don't know if she's old. But she seems. I don't know how old she is here.
Older.
She seems very mature and very like not the character that she's trying to play.
Correct. Because she comes off as being much older than her brother, and they seem to be going to the exact same college, and she has a kid that's, I don't know how old Danny is, but it sounds like it almost feels like she had a kid while she was a teenager. And of course her father chastises her and that bastard child, as he calls him.
That scene with the father is a little over the top. I thought it just seemed like very harsh, and it was just like kind of this is an interesting scene, but it could have been handled, I think, a little bit better. But they really wanted to make his character look shitty really quick, because he doesn't have that many more scenes after that. So they had to give him something, I guess, to make him ridiculous. But it kind of takes away a lot from everything. Once he like smacks her across the face, to me, it's like, she talks back to him. And of course, he's saying all this nasty stuff about her son being a bastard, and he's right there. It's kind of hard to it's kind of hard to take. You got your grandfather. I don't know why exactly it's such a big deal to him that the son he's having to take care of the son and then the daughter. He seems perfectly fine with his other son. He
Hmm.
doesn't seem to have any. And the weird thing is the other son acts in a way that he seems very comfortable with everything going on around him, where he doesn't seem like an abuse victim. Because he seems like he's having fun. Everything he's
Hmm.
doing, he's laughing at things, and so it kind of doesn't match that the stepfather is abusive, or not even the stepfather, the actual dad, that he's actually dad abusive, that he's going to sit here and talk about his nephew and his sister in front of him, and it doesn't have a physical abuse you know effect on him.
Yeah, no, I thought the same. I don't know if I ever thought about that until I watched the producer's cut. But I think that's one of the things that comes about when you're a very inexperienced director, and or not as experienced as a director, and then of course you're dealing with a franchise movie that there is a lot of expectations for. Nowadays, you probably wouldn't get something like that because they just keep reinventing and making a new spin-off from a different timeline now with every franchise.
Yeah.
Uh, so it doesn't really matter anymore. But back then, this is like I said, the one thing I did admire about filmmaking and filmmakers is the fact that they were trying so hard to write a sequel that would actually make sense of the stuff that came in from the film before. Like if they weren't hampered with the Man in Black and all this other stuff, I guarantee you they probably would have came up with a much better concept than what they did. But they were just trying to come up with a reasoning for everything and
Right.
over explaining because the Cult of Thorn goes a little bit crazy trying to explain. Well, Mike only comes out these times when the constellation shows up and blah blah blah.
Yeah. I mean, and all that's fine. Like, if that's what you know, if you're that's what the people making the film knows, but you don't have to say it because it's too contrived. It's just like, it's fine if, and it takes away a lot from, I guess it's just too of a like what sort of thing. But I don't mind like the idea of druids and stuff. I think people there was like with Warlock 2, the Armageddon, they do some druid stuff in that, and it's kind of like it's probably around the same time period more than likely, and like suddenly everyone there, all these horror movie writers want to throw druids into that. Now I don't think people really like the idea of druids at all. They're like, I really don't want to hear anything about druids.
Ah,
I think it sounds kind of cool, and it kind of reminds me of like how Halloween 3, almost like the Druids in Stonehenge kind of connection and all that. But
I
yeah,
never thought about that, but you could be right. Sometimes the filmmakers catch on to a concept or an idea that they think is going to be the next big thing, and it ends up falling flat on their face.
yeah,
Uh, yeah. You know what? I have to research and figure out when Warlock the Armageddon came out because I love that movie, but that movie didn't do well either.
yeah. I liked it too, and it is like I even like the Druid stuff in it, but it is really cheesy. I think I like it. I like it better than probably the first one, even though the first one's a better film. But I like I just like it because it's a lot more cheesy than the first one. The first one is kind of a Terminator kind of ripoff. 1993 was Warlock the Armageddon, so it was like right when this was coming out. They were writing the script for this movie from 1989 till when they shot it. So it's in that time frame, and they're like, man, we got to get some druids in this thing. You know,
Well, then also, I mean, you bring up an interesting point because, there's very few movies out there that I can think of that have been successful. Speaking about things that have to do with druids and uh,
other than Spaceballs, I
mythology,
think I think they mentioned it in Spaceballs, like she's a
Jesus,
Druish princess or something.
they do Druidia. Oh
Yeah,
God. Oh my God, this will go down in history as the one episode that de-evolves to Spaceballs. Oh my God. And it's a Halloween 6 fucking reference. Uh Jesus. Um I'm trying to think of other concepts and ideals between the original cut and the producer's cut that we can speak of without giving away too much. But I think that we've discussed a lot of things. Now, I do want to say that this film was like a mediocre success. I remember when it came out, it was the highest grossing movie of the week, but that it didn't make over $10 million. I can't remember how much it finally made, but I think I have to go back and I have to double check my facts on this. It's one of the because I believe it was released in October, but for most other Halloween movies after this, they were released a month before October. Unfortunately for us,
Yeah. So this was released September 29th, which was pretty much October, and it budgeted $5 million. It made $15 million,
yeah,
which isn't horrible, but I'm sure they wanted a lot more than that.
yeah, I think
It would be bad by today's standards, I would think, and
yeah, yeah. But it was also Dimension who put this one out. I think this is Dimension's first one they put out, if I'm not
yeah,
mistaken. Yeah.
I think you're right. Yeah.
This was about the time where, because I know Joe. Shit, am I getting the director right on this one?
Yeah, you're right, Joe Chappelle. Yeah.
Okay, sometimes I get this wrong. Joe Chappelle.
Last time you called him Dave Chappelle, I think.
Oh yeah. So Joe Chappelle is off doing this one, and he does Phantoms, and he does a bunch of other movies. And I've never looked into his background or how he got a hold of these franchises.
Right. Well, he kind of after that he went into TV, but he's done some pretty impressive TV shows, including The Wire and Fringe, which I'll watch both of those. He directed some episodes and he was involved with the producing on both of those shows and a bunch of other shows too that I haven't seen.
Oh wow, I think you're right. Yeah.
I don't know how he got involved with it, but I guess he got lucky a little bit.
I mean, I remember this, and I remember Phantoms. Oh, because I saw both those at the theater and realized it was the same guy who directed them.
Okay, yeah.
I don't really care for Phantoms either, but I like the look of Phantoms.
Right. I watched it again recently. I liked it better this time. I had a lot better.
Yeah.
I was able to not have the high expectations I had the first time, and I actually enjoyed it. They have a new 4K version of it by Scream Factory, and it's thought it was. It's not like a great movie, but I did enjoy it. I thought it was a lot better than I remembered it.
It probably would be for me too, because I remember I saw it because I'm a Dean Koontz fan, and I'm a huge Peter O'Toole fan.
Ben Affleck's the bomb in that, by the way, yo.
Dude, that had the other guy too. Oh shit,
Lev Schreiber and
Lev Schreiber. Before he was known.
Got Peter O'Toole and Rose McDonald,
Rose
McGowan, and
the other girl who was famous for a whole bunch of stuff. And I'm like
Joanna Going.
And so I was like, oh man, this is gonna be an awesome movie. And I was with it until the very end. And so with that, I was like, oh, Joe Chappelle. Oh, he touched Halloween 6 and Phantoms. And I'm looking at his thing, and I've actually seen a lot of stuff that he's done between the Skulls 2, Wolf Lake, which I absolutely loved. Ooh, that's a good one. I haven't seen that in a long time. I had to go back to Wolf Lake. I like that one.
Yeah, I hadn't seen that. Yeah, I don't think he if I'm not mistaken, I think that Skulls 2, I don't think he directed it. I think he just produced it or helped with it or something. It seems like he kind of got into more producing stuff on a lot of those later ones.
Mm-hmm.
But he's still directing TV episodes. I mean, The Wire is a great show. I mean, that's pretty impressive.
And he's done some of Godfather of Harlem. So
yeah, that's a new show.
Yeah, that's a new show. So I'm glad he's still working. He started off, Halloween 6 is his second movie. It feels like it's a new person's type of movie, and that's okay. He's come a long way having done The Wire. I have to admit, if you've done The Wire and you've done Godfather of Harlem, you've come a long way. But I like to bring up stuff like that because for some odd reason when I was younger, I knew who the fuck Joe Chappelle was. So if you're listening to this podcast, Chappelle, you should at least realize that even back then, when you were first doing your first couple movies and no one paid attention, I knew who the hell your name was. So
yeah, that's But like you kind of lost faith in it after Phantoms, though, right? You're just kind of after that, you're kind of like, I don't know about
Well,
that guy.
it probably was more like Skulls too, because the Skulls, I love the Skulls. I did not
Yeah,
like Skulls too.
yeah,
And then I didn't realize after that the reason why I hadn't seen him do anything because he went to television.
right, right. And
Yeah,
like,
which is fine.
yeah, I
A
mean,
lot of great directors go to television. Hell, David Slade went to television after directing some amazing fucking movies. Uh, you know, and
yeah, yeah,
it happens to everybody. Frank Darabont directed some great movies, and then he went to television. He's back,
right, right.
you know.
He
So
kind of, yeah, he had a rough go of it with The Walking Dead, but he kind
he
of got kicked
sounds
off his
back.
own show. Yeah,
He's
that
doing
was
Stranger Things.
it
He's
messed
doing.
him. Yeah, it messed him up for a while though.
It did.
It kind of he kind of had a all he was doing during that time period for a while was just suing him for kicking him off the show. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but he finally won his lawsuit. It took him
Yeah,
what 10 years? Like it's
yeah,
a
yeah.
long time. Like holy
It's
shit.
messed up. Yeah, it's messed up what they did. I don't know. I mean,
But he'll bounce
well,
back.
yeah,
He's directing 2 episodes of the final season of Stranger Things. So you
that's
never
cool. Yeah,
know where you're going to end up from where you start,
yeah.
and
Those are
that's
going.
how.
Yeah, bet you
That's
those
what I have to
episodes
say.
are going to be good too. The ones that he's directing.
Yeah, I think they're all going to be good. They're all supposed to
Yeah,
be movie lane.
are they? Yeah,
Yeah, they're all long episodes. That's why they hired Frank Darabont to do 2 of them.
that's
Sean
cool.
Levy's directing a couple of them. Frank Darabont's directing a couple of them. I don't know who else is directing them, but they're like movie length ones.
That's cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to it for sure. I think
yeah,
I've liked all of it so far. Really, it's been pretty good.
yeah. Well,
For sure.
let's tell everyone to just hire Joe Chappelle to do a couple episodes when he's not
Yeah, yeah.
Godfather of Harlem. Uh, any final words about Halloween 6 for you, Dave?
Well, I got a couple of notes here that are very simple stuff we didn't get to.
By all means.
I want to rate the film too, but one thing I don't know if I noticed it in both of them, but it's worse in the producer's cut. So they got this baby that Paul Rudd's character has to carry around for a while, and then the other girl, Kara Strode, has to carry it around, and it's obvious it's not a real baby most of the time, and it's kind of ridiculous. It's a real pain in the ass if you have to deal with a baby in a script, and it's on screen as a fake baby for a long time during probably a good 10 minutes of the movie. Um, that's one thing. I thought it's just a little distracting, and then they do
Yeah.
stupid stuff with a baby. Like if if you ever dealt with holding a baby before, I guess unless you're completely like scatterbrained, he takes the baby and sets it down on a dress. It's not even a dresser; it's like a desk, and that baby's gonna roll off the desk. I don't know if he's like if Tommy Doyle is more of a danger to it than Doctor Wynn is, because then Doctor Wynn gets the baby. But he just leaves it on the desk, and it's like I don't know. So, but obviously he's not doesn't know how to take care of a baby. But even though he has it for a day or something,
Hmm.
and he has to, it's kind of like a ridiculous. It's kind of annoying that they had to take care of a baby, really, in a way, because it's just they're acting like the baby's just like it's just a football or something that they could just move around and walk around with it without having to deal with like things like changing diapers and feeding it and making it not cry.
Yeah, who out there is Paul Rudd changing these diapers? I will see him going out to the grocery store buying some diapers and some wipes.
Right. And he doesn't get any formula or anything, so I don't know.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That baby should be being fed every 3 hours. I
Yeah.
don't see that baby ever getting fed.
Yeah. I think they do feed it actually, but like obviously they get it and they're able to hand it to Kara Strode, and I guess like maybe since I guess her son's about maybe 5 or 6, so she probably has some diapers still from when he was an infant.
I did notice that the baby was like a little bitty sack of flour or something that they were carrying around. I
I think
noticed that when
yeah, I think they had a fake baby like for most of every now and then it'll cut to a close up and you see a real baby, but
yeah.
it's most of the time it's a pretty fake looking baby, and then it's on screen for way too much, and they should have been able to hand it off to somebody who could take care of a baby, at some point, just to make it easier for them to actually do get the A to B in the scenes. But unless they really wanted to make it really about the baby and show them going through the process of what you have to deal with, which isn't it's a lot, you know, especially for someone who doesn't know how to do it, you know. But
We can
then
say that now because we both have kids, but when this movie came out, we didn't have kids.
you're right, right, yeah. I mean, it's something like I didn't even register when the first time I
It didn't
saw it.
register me either.
It seemed fine, you know. Yeah, just it's a baby, you know. It's not a big deal. Another thing that's this is the sort of thing that doesn't really work anymore, and it worked back, and this was kind of the end of this era, where it starts off at the beginning of it, where there's a radio station DJ talking, and a lot of the characters are connected from listening to that radio show that's live on the air, and it's really. I think in this time period, that was past where this would have really worked. It works really good in the fog, but I think that they're basically still using kind of like that kind of plot device in a movie where it probably wouldn't be working anymore. But there is old technology here that they use like payphones, which you don't see those anymore, you know. But back then it was like that's what you had to use. So maybe the radio was really still in play at this point, but this was kind of near the end, if not past that era where that sort of thing wouldn't work because people just don't sit around listening to radio stations at night anymore, you know.
That's actually a good point. I didn't think about that.
And then and one last thing, Paul Rudd's accent a couple of times it sounds like a really odd. It only like twice, but it's almost like he was trying to sound like someone from like I don't even. I'm trying to think of the way that he sounds, but the first time he talks on the radio station. Maybe he's trying to disguise his voice, but he sounds like Midwestern or not Midwestern. It's like it's not that. It's more like a Fargo type of voice, you know, like you know, like briefly, like a couple of words sounded like that, and then later on he does it one other time. But I feel like maybe I don't know if that was him disguising his voice for the radio station, or if he was trying to do something different with his accent as the character. Maybe the director, after seeing a little bit of it, was like, hey, maybe we should just like talk normal instead of doing that, you know.
Huh. I'll have to think about that next time I watch it because I didn't pick up on that one at all.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, the character, though. I mean, I just think it helps a lot that Paul Rudd's in the film. It helps the movie a lot, but he does. The character's very odd acting, and it's funny. Like there's like this one, even when he comes up to Dr. Loomis with the baby and he's walking away, he does this really weird looking turn back around at Dr. Loomis, like he's like hunched over acting, and then goes off. You know, like he's almost trying to do some kind of character, you know, instead of like acting like a likable character that he has to do later when he's with the girl, you know, saying like he's trying to do some kind of like Igor character or something. I don't know. So,
Hey, I have to look it up real quick. Shit. Because he reminds me of a actor back in the day from a movie. He reminds me of Johnny Lee Miller in Hackers.
Okay, I can see that. Yeah. I saw that recently.
His mannerisms remind me of that. I remember recognizing that when I rewatched it. So, unlike Halloween 6, I saw Hackers maybe 1,000 times as a kid. I used to love Hackers.
Yeah. They got a new 4K of it out. It looks good. I watched it probably about 6 months ago or something. It's interesting too.
I haven't seen it in years now.
Hackers came out in 1995, the same year. Yeah, maybe he went to the set and saw what Johnny Lee Miller was doing and was like, "Hey man, that looks pretty cool. I'm gonna try that." You know.
I immediately I wouldn't know who Johnny Lee Miller was or is if it wasn't for Hackers. I used to love that freaking movie. It also had Angelina Jolie in it, who's like my old school crush back in the day when I was a kid and didn't know any fucking better. I was into that whole little scene for a little while. Yeah. So Hackers was a cool fucking movie to me.
I think it still holds up pretty good. I mean, obviously the technology's dated, but I think it in general holds up. It's fairly watchable still.
I'll have to. I haven't seen it in years, dude. I don't own it. I haven't watched it in years. I owned it on VHS.
Yeah,
I've never upgraded. Yeah. I've never upgraded for some reason.
There's like Matthew Lillard's in it, and Fisher Stevens plays
Fisher Stevens.
Yeah.
Riding a skateboard. I still remember themes.
He comes into that one scene like the first time you see. I think that's the only time he does it, isn't it? Like he comes into that one scene. I bet that was a pain in the ass to shoot that scene.
Oh shit. Anything else to say about Halloween 6 before we rate it for the
Oh
night?
yeah, let's get down to it.
Oh, okay. So what do you want to rate Halloween 6?
So I'm going to rate it 3.5 out of 5 stars.
Okay.
I like it pretty good. It's not it's a flawed film, but it's funny. This one's actually one that I've watched probably more than most of the other ones. I think I've seen the first and third one more than any of them, and this is probably the third one I've watched more. Just because it's kind of like right. This is the first one I saw in the theater. Something about it, I've always liked it, but I don't think it's a great movie. But
Hmm.
it's one where I think because of the age I was when I saw it, I could rewatch it, even though I know like the stuff's not making sense or some of it just doesn't work, But
No, I agree with you. Like me, even though I think the fifth one is horrible because that was the first one I saw at the theater.
yeah,
I've seen that one a lot more than I probably should have seen it. But
right.
I've since seen all of them since the fifth one at the theater, except for the last one. And then I went back when they re-released the fourth one. Me and my friend Ron McClellan saw we went back and watched the re-released fourth one when they re-released that one. So I've essentially
It's
seen
pretty cool. Yeah,
the fourth and more. I still want someone to do the fucking first and third one. I would love to see those on the big screen again. I would love to see them both, but I keep missing the first one. They've done that. They do that. They do that all the time. Actually, I've never seen it on the big screen, but I'm still dying to see it. Uh, I'm gonna rate. You know what? I'm gonna be much more kind to this film than I would have if before this conversation. I'm gonna give it 3.5 stars as well. For the theatrical cut, not the producer's cut. I will give the producer's cut about 2.5 stars. I
yeah,
I just I just enjoy the kills in the first one so much more than I did in the producer's cut. And I don't need all the exposition. When I was younger and I read the Fangoria article, I wished that I had seen the producer's cut. But now having seen it, I'm glad I grew up having watched the theatrical cut until now. So
yeah,
I'm a rated more.
yeah. I agree with you on the producer's cut. I would probably rate it a 3. I don't, but I like some of the scenes. I think like that one scene I was telling you about with Dr. Wynn in the hall. And I do like seeing Dr. Wynn. He's pretty good in it too because you get to see more of him. But at the same time, when you can tell Donald Pleasance is struggling in the scenes he's in, but I do like the kind of back and forth between them. But they had to cut a bunch of that just because they killed Jamie earlier, and almost
Yeah.
all of their scenes were dealing with Jamie. And even the ones, and that's why they had to cut them so short too, because they had to cut out anything about Jamie. It was like one scene where the doctor comes in and he's like, "Hey, I got this tube or whatever." Like he's talking about her being dead, and he's like, "I got this little cylinder thing, and this proves that she was pregnant just before she died." But then it's like they cut out. It's already a pretty short scene. It's probably like a minute or something. They cut it down to like 20 seconds. It's like, he says the same information, but they cut out everything that happens before the doctor comes in.
Yeah, I noticed that was so weird to me watching it. Because like I said, I've seen the movie plenty of times when I was a kid. It's just been years since I've seen it because I haven't gone back to rewatch the Halloween movies like I did when I was a kid. I
Yeah,
said up until age 20, I watched them every year up until
right.
age 20, and then I just kind of stopped. On Halloween,
Yeah. You got too many of them all of a sudden too.
well, yeah,
You
you
know,
can't watch them in one
yeah,
fucking night. You have to
yeah.
span them out over freaking nights. Uh,
Yeah, I think watching like 1 through 6 is doable if you leave out 3, as a marathon. I think I like 3 a lot. I mean, from when we talked about it before, but I think if you throw that into the middle of that, it's going to take you out of the other part of the Michael Myers. So I think you maybe handled the first ones. Maybe I don't know if I couldn't stay awake through that many in one night. I could a long time ago, but if I tried to watch like 5 of them in one night, I would maybe make it through 1.5 or 2. So,
I can guarantee you, I'm only going to make it through 1.5.
yeah,
So everyone listening to the podcast, I can't make it through watching 2 movies to prep for this every night.
yeah.
So I
No,
have to
I
take
can't
my
either,
time.
man. It's tough, especially after we do this, and then I go to do it, and I go to watch something. I'm already tired to begin with. So
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. So that is going to bring us to the end of this podcast episode. We've rated it for you all out there, both the theatrical and the producer's cut. Whichever cut you choose, we hope you enjoy it. This has been Conversations in Horror. Thank you, Dave Watkins, for joining us and talking about Halloween, the curse of Michael Myers. We hope you all have a great Halloween and October season. Continue to watch horror films every day for the rest of this month. And if you are a true horror fan, watch them every day for the rest of your life, because every day for us is always Halloween here. Thank you so much for joining us for Conversations in Horror. Everyone out there, have a great day. Conversations in Horror is a Broken Lighthouse Pictures production, written, produced, and directed by Kevin L. Powers, executive producer Kelly A. Inoka. All contents and material from this episode of Conversations in Horror is copyright 2025 Broken Lighthouse Pictures.